So
Wait, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you say
yeah.
magazine or
I
newspaper?
did, and I actually noticed this one when I was going through them earlier and asked a question about it. I believe some of the later submissions are for magazine and some of the first few are not. So it's,
I can guarantee you that National Geographic has something entered in the magazine category.
Okay, I see.
So, I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I just can't imagine they wouldn't have entered.
right. I would
Yeah.
love to see a lot
And
more,
also,
but yeah.
this is not the Seattle Times Magazine, right? It's their newspaper.
No,
Yeah.
Well,
their
if we
front page.
go to I think so there's 36 images uploaded here. If you scroll down, I believe
Oh,
there's
wow.
their magazine.
So we should be looking at the magazine
A
images.
magazine, yeah.
Gotcha.
It
Oh,
seems to me
Oh,
like
okay.
it seems to me like this was a mistake.
Got
Or
it.
maybe
but does that mean that they entered the other part in some other category we've already judged?
it's possible it was the newspaper. It might have
Somebody
been
might want to ask them.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
haven't judged that yet. So why don't I put that ask out tonight and see if we can get an answer
Yeah.
before tomorrow.
Who is Seattle? Is that Danny Gillespie? I'm trying to remember who's in Seattle.
I think Danny's still out
He
there.
is there, but he's not.
Yeah.
He's not the DOP. I don't think.
Is it okay
No,
for us to
but-
cycle through the images?
Yeah, let's look at just the magazine for now if everyone's comfortable with that. I don't think that we need to disqualify this.
Okay.
I know, but I'll ask about if we can include them in the other.
I'm more worried that we're missing the other part in some other category.
Okay,
You know,
well then I will
so-
definitely ask about that.
Thank you.
So we do want to start here though?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. So this is the staff magazine editing, right?
A team award, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, hold on. Let me just pull up the official so I can read it out loud to you like I had intended to.
Oh, great.
This is Magazine Picture Editing Team of the Year. Best use of photography from 2 or more editors. And the one after this will just be from a single editor.
I see.
What's this?
The Curious Society, it's their inaugural issue.
Oh, okay, so we are looking at another one now, right? Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah, this is the second
Right.
submission and there are 128 images in this submission.
Yeah, it's
Are
like,
there descriptions for, oh my goodness. Okay.
That's a
I think it's
lot.
like it's a 300-page application, I believe.
Wow.
Or
okay.
no, I'm wrong. It's I think it might have been $300 for the quarterly for the
I think you're
year.
right.
Yeah, something like that. 4
What is the
issues.
deal? Who are they?
Right?
It's Ken Jareski and a bunch of people he pulled together. So
But there are no individual descriptions for these.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
thank God.
I guess we just go through them.
Yeah, we just immerse ourselves. I think they asked for submissions and people submitted and they selected.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yep,
we already saw this, right?
some of
It's
these.
Nick Lowe
Yeah.
again. It's
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
project that he's been doing.
Oh, okay. So interesting to see them edited in a different way, huh?
Yeah.
Right, and use it
Mhm.
such different sizes and
Mm-hmm.
That body of work's really excellent. I don't know if this is going to be a conflict of interest, but I should mention that I've seen a few of these projects while curating the Women Photograph 2020 annual, and then also while jurying and curating the Ain't Bad, I think, issue 15 open call that came out a little while ago.
I think unless you have like a personal connection to the project or working on it, I would feel comfortable with you judging this in the same way you judged those pieces for those things. Does anyone feel differently?
That makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I
And you
think
feel
so,
comfortable,
too.
Ariana?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really funny. It's just about foxes.
All right, wow. That's
A lot of work.
a big book, I imagine, in real life.
So what tell me more about
So unfortunately,
what
there
I'm
was
looking
no,
at.
there was no description for these, right? Just to clarify.
That's a bummer.
That is,
Not that we have found, no.
Okay.
yeah, it would be
What
good
is
to have a little
the-
bit of context.
Can I get the description of the category again?
Yeah, and it is kind of broad, but it is magazine picture editing team of the year. So best use of photography
Ah,
from.
They do have
tour-
a project description as a whole for this one. Turns out.
I was mistaken. I thought we did not, but we actually do. Let me pull it
Awesome.
up. Okay. So the project description for that one is this issue, one of the Curious Society in its eternity. It has a wraparound cover. The spine of the magazine is in the middle, and the images on either side are flaps, which are folded inside. The images on the cover were made by, can't say the photographer's name, I'm going to skip that, and show events at the US Capitol on January 6th, 2021 and January 22nd, 2021. There's both an inside front, inside back cover, which run around 2.5 pages. The magazine is 256 pages and measures roughly 11 by 14 inches, making a double truck spread 22 by 14 inches. And then it looks like everything else after that is just crediting artists that helped to make this magazine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we know, these are selected stories from the magazine. This isn't the entire thing, because it's like 200 some odd pages.
That was
Maybe.
200 some odd. pages.
Oh, never mind. It's
I
the
think
whole
that was the entire thing.
Yeah.
thing.
It was
think-
very nearly the entire thing, but they did skip around.
It is
Okay.
hard to compare the two, we have only 2 entries and it's kind of hard to compare the two, but
Yeah.
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 This
It's
is-
kind of, I
this is
guess
tough.
for me, it's kind of like, does each one kind of fulfill their mandate or what they were trying to do? How well did they come through on, what their intention was?
Mhm.
I
I
feel
will
very-
say though, I went into looking at that, at both of these entries, this being a photos of the year issue and the other one being a photos of the year issue.
Yeah.
Like they're both very similar, but
But I think
I
the Curious
was-
Society is, I'm sorry to interrupt, is
Oh, no.
picking up work from any time. I don't think it's from the last year only, but
Mm.
it's a similar kind of anthology in that way, but,
yeah, it's
It
almost like a
seems like
photo
the work
book
is from the
category.
last year. Yeah. Sorry.
Mhm.
No,
No,
it's okay.
I take your meaning.
I was gonna say that I think traditionally too, I could be wrong, but I feel like it's usually like this is like a portfolio category, not even
Mhm.
like a single magazine issue. So it's interesting that it was a single magazine issue and a photo book.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've entered this category before, and it's more of a portfolio when we did it.
I feel like I don't know how to even begin to consider judging this. Because I think like even if you look at it like, photos of the year, it's it's a newspaper versus a magazine. So the level of curation is different.
Yeah.
I would say the overall quality of the collected images in this magazine are, to me, of a higher standard than what I saw in the Seattle Times magazine. But also I'm like, it feels wrong to compare the two.
It's apples and oranges.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that I feel like I even
It's
can award for this.
yeah.
I was about to say, do either of them fulfill like, I guess what this group envisions as like a magazine team portfolio?
I would say no.
I would agree.
So I'm sorry, are you saying you think it's best if we don't award anything at all?
That's where I'm leaning.
Okay, no, I just want to be
kind of-
clear.
I'm kind of leaning the same place because yeah.
So, but just to clarify, so I guess I'm still confused, that first Seattle entry, when you say it's the editing team award, it is for the magazine category, so they wouldn't have been entering all those other pages, right? As part of the entry, that it would only be restricted to that magazine layouts that they sent, right?
Could we actually see how
So,
the instructions
Yeah, I
were
don't
written?
know either, but
instructions for submitting?
Yeah, like is there an actual separate, there is a separate newspaper team editing, right?
Yes, there is, that we're gonna
Okay.
judge tomorrow.
Okay.
So my understanding is that, because the submission guidelines that they have are the same ones that I've been reading for you all.
right.
Mhm.
Same ones that, which to be honest, can be open to interpretation. And it does seem like maybe there was a mistake or miscommunication here. And unfortunately, when I was asking Mark and AJ about like if we could find out if their newspaper portfolio was entered in the newspaper category, he checked, they did not enter it. And in the rules, technically, we can't recategorize an entry, and that
Okay.
with the volume of entries that we get, we don't have the resources to fix those issues. So
Okay.
Is there a reason it says project 1 of 2 at the top where the rating is for this?
yeah, that's talking
There's
about
two
this
different entries.
submission. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of leaning towards we do not award. It's just, I don't know. It's just, I don't know where to start with this one. Like,
Yeah.
I will say I applaud that there's actual photo editing happening on these pages. It's not, it doesn't look like just a series of double trucks, which was my fear. But,
But can I
It's a
ask,
tough
is
one.
it the Curious Society, the sort of scope of how ambitious it is that what's knocking out our giving any award at all? Or is it just because you feel like we can't, like for instance, if we only had one or the other of these, would you award it at all or not?
I don't think I would. I view this as a category where you have a portfolio, which means you submit, your best work, not an entire issue.
Yep. Yeah, I think for
Well,
me,
I think that's
also
what
the
they're saying
concern.
is that's their best work, right?
Yeah, but it's also just like, it is magazine photo editing. And just looking through the 128 images that we saw, there were some stories that they could have not submitted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it feels like they just kind of threw everything at us instead of really thinking carefully about what was actually the best representation of that magazine.
Exactly. Yeah. You hit it on the head. That's exactly what I was thinking.
But how do you know they didn't decide that their, pictures of the year issue was the best and they sent that as the one representative? Because I guess I'm wondering, do people normally enter like 2 or 3 issues from a magazine? I just don't know what is the expectation. But
I kind of side with you, Elizabeth, in that
Mhm.
like my interpretation of this category is like they're presenting their best work in
Mhm.
whatever form that takes as a magazine team.
Right.
I do think there's some murkiness here, and I'd love to figure out like what the confusion was for entering in this category. Maybe it's just like that magazines teams look different now than they have in
Yeah.
years past, and it's not always so clear cut. But I do think we need to assume that this is like their portfolio, right? This is what they deem is the best.
I mean, to me, it seems like the mistake in this entry was that they entered all that daily news stuff when it should have been in a different category. That seems like the mistake. And if you just start with what we were looking with, where we started to look with the cover of the magazine, it seems like a perfectly legitimate entry to me. Whether or not you think it's worthy of giving any award or not, that's a whole different story. But I feel like we shouldn't be prevented from giving an award because I don't know, we can't grapple with, the content that is presented in front of us. And, Curious Society, I mean, they consider themselves a magazine. They don't consider themselves a book, so.
I mean, I think I'm happy to be frank. I just
Yeah.
don't think the editing is up to snuff for either of
Okay.
these issues.
Okay. If that's the case, then I
I agree.
totally
It's two
take your
different
point.
issues.
Yeah, then. I think
Yeah.
that is
I mean,
different.
it's both. Like there's definitely some, when I talk about a portfolio, there's a lot of stuff I wouldn't have included and it would have made everything stronger.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So let's talk about these in terms of portfolios, because they, technically made it through the system and we're discussing them as portfolios. So in that case, we have 2 people who feel like neither of them are up to snuff for an award. Are there any thoughts from the other 2?
I mean, I don't want to go through the entire Curious Society magazine again, but I thought, I thought there was, of course, a lot of strong work in the Curious Society magazine, and a lot of it very familiar in the sense that I've seen many of the, and we all have seen many of those bodies of work before, because they're not, as far as I know, commissioning, or at least most of it, I think, looked like it was already existing work, and they had an open call and they just selected what they wanted. But I thought there was some nice editing that was going on. But, of course, to judge the whole thing, you have to look at it and say, as I was, with some of the other entries in our previous category, what are the weaknesses, and does it hold together as strongly from beginning to end? And that's where I think you can make an argument, that maybe it isn't worthy because it's not as consistently strong all the way through. But I did think there was a lot of strong work and a lot of strong editing. And I thought there was in the Seattle Times entry also. It's a little more what I would have expected from a newspaper magazine. That's all. But,
Yeah. I kind of agree with what you're saying there, but I think it is those weaknesses that are holding me back, because like I'm saying, like I think of it as a whole issue versus a portfolio, and a whole issue isn't a portfolio unless you're actually willing to say, this is my portfolio. And if that's how this entry is set in, I'm looking at that as a portfolio and saying, well, why did we include these pages? If this was not here, this entry would have been stronger. And this sequence here, I'm not sure if I would have done that or gone, it's just like as a whole, right? Because I have to look at it as a portfolio.
yes.
And then that's what's dinging it for me.
Okay.
Is that it's it's being held back.
I
And
think
it's
that's
tough
very
because,
no, I think that's very legitimate to say.
And I was asking, like, how was the entry, like, what was the instructions and how were they written for people? Because was it obvious to people that you should be doing a portfolio, or did they have this expectation of one intact issue?
So it is Magazine Picture Editing Team of the Year, best use of photography from 2 or more editors.
Wow, that could be interpreted so many ways.
I know. My feeling is, thank God the Curious Society didn't send a second issue with the first one.
I was gonna say, we technically allowed like 7 entries, and
Wow.
each entry is sort of its own concise thing, whatever that is, right? Like a story or a magazine or whatever. So that could have been possible. And I actually slimmed that number down from last year.
Yeah, to your point, Elizabeth, I think you're right that there is a lot of strong work from the Curious magazine. But I think the thing that's stuck in my craw is if this is best magazine editing from a team, and I'm, as a viewer, looking at this mass of images and thinking to myself, well, this story here kind of pulls away, makes the entire edit feel a little bit weaker to me. Then I guess for me, the question is, like, was there actually thoughtful editing involved? I think that there was thoughtful editing involved when it came to layout of images and who was selected to be a part of the magazine, but I don't know that that same kind of consideration was given when they entered these specific images and stories for this particular category.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Interesting. Makes me wonder where else they entered it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
is there anyone advocating for either of these placing?
I'm curious, Emily, did you want to, Emily Kay, did you want to say anything about this?
Oh, not really. I feel like we either give them both awards or we decide that we don't. Not to be, I have tremendous issues with the curious situation, the curious situation, primarily because I just don't understand what I'm looking at. Like I saw it, I was like, oh, this is like Colors magazine, but actually it's not. It's just a hodgepodge of, there's no
central
reason for any central theme or like a reason to go from page to page. So then it's like, okay, well, if this, should I be looking at this in a way that allows it to be what it is, and
Hmm.
not try to, is there a way to make me like this more? I don't know. I thought the foxes were funny.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was like, for me, that was the best one because I knew exactly what I was looking at. I was like, oh, this is a story about foxes in the 21st century. Like, fabulous. I know what I'm looking at. And the rest, it was like, I could be looking at anything right now. I'm given nothing here. No
Yeah.
foundation and no like line from the first to the second. I didn't understand what, anyway. Sorry.
We do have, y'all know some of the categories that we've already judged, and the rest are all online, but there's magazine cover, magazine general news story, magazine feature story, picture editing team of the year, picture editor of the year, bunch of newspaper categories. So I do think it's a choice where people submit these, and they are all available online and during the submission process.
Yeah, I guess I would say, like, what is a photo editor? Like, what is the photo editor's job? And like, I don't have an answer to that. But if the photo editor's job is to like pick a picture and print it, then like we should decide that. And for me, I'd be fine giving the Curious first place and the Seattle Times the second place, because I thought some of the Seattle Times pictures were really egregious. Like the raindrops picture, just like, come on, you can't. We can't.
I feel that way about some of the images that were submitted by the Curious Society too, where it was like,
Same.
Yeah,
I
but
feel
there
like some
were
people are just like
500 of them,
submitting
so-
to like stroke their egos. And so if I'm not gonna place the Seattle Times for making like lazy editing decisions, I'm also not gonna place the Curious magazine for making lazy editing decisions. So for me, I'm not awarding anything for anyone on this.
Okay. Mhm. I mean, I'm fine with going with that decision, hearing all of the reasoning that, the two of you have laid out. I just wanted to make sure we
We
weren't
give them both honorable
withholding.
mentions.
What's that? Oh, what's
We give
that?
them both honorable mentions.
No,
I wish,
I don't
but we
think-
actually
We
can
can
only
only do
pick
one.
one.
Yeah, and I don't think Oriana would be happy with that either.
No, I wouldn't give either of them honorable mentions
Yeah,
either.
I
I'm
didn't
also
think so.
just thinking about the quality of work and like consideration and thoughtfulness that we have been
Mhm.
discussing when it comes to judging all of these other categories. And these both kind of fall to me as being a little bit lazy.
All right.
I
Yeah,
just wanted to
no.
make sure we weren't withholding awards because we were just kind of so confounded by,
Yeah.
having to weigh two such different things against each other.
Right.
But I totally understand some of the reasons that you've been talking about.
How do we feel about tabling this one? I might ask, since it's my first time running this and a few of your first times doing this, I'm happy to like ask some feedback to Mark and AJ about like how to address when there's a bit of a flop with submissions and our understanding. It's not sort of traditionally what we expect to see in the portfolio and how we should handle that. And we sleep on it and come back to it tomorrow, unless we feel strongly either way.
I could do that. I think
Yeah, I'm
that's,
happy to hear other perspectives.
I mean, I
So,
think we do want to be fair, and that's the big
Mhm.
question we're asking ourselves right now is, we're going to make a choice. We choose not to award somebody. Is that fair to everybody?
right.
Yeah, I'm
So
not
I
sure
think
it
it's-
is. I mean, they're both like, I don't know. I'm also a little tired. So I'll
Right.
come back
right.
tomorrow on it.
Okay.
Once I figure out what the role of a photo editor is.